Welcome to the future of factory automation. This program is a broadcast of a Japanese podcast that has been translated into English using Notebook LM. You're here because you want to get knowledge quickly and thoroughly, and well, that's exactly what we aim to do.
Absolutely. Today, we're diving deep into what Japanese factory automation pros really think about various FA equipment manufacturers. These are their candid thoughts, translated, giving us a pretty unique perspective, what they like, what drives them crazy.
Yeah, our mission here is basically to pull out the key takeaways, the good, the bad, about these different companies. And we'll also to touch on some broader thoughts they had about where the industry's heading and the challenges.
Think of it as the condensed version, the highlights reel of their experiences and opinions.
Exactly. And just to be clear, this all comes from a translated Japanese podcast. The speakers have direct, hands-on experience with this stuff. Okay, so let's get into it. They kick things off with Phoenix Contact. The first thing mentioned was a positive vibe from their early work with the PLC Next controller. That's their newer PLC platform.
Right, but what really got them talking was Phoenix Contact's GitHub presence.
Yeah, this was interesting. They drew a pretty stark contrast with Japanese manufacturers here.
They did. The German and American GitHub repos from Phoenix Contact, described as exceptionally high quality, really comprehensive. They mentioned firmware, libraries, even specific examples like safety sequence code, thermal code, all just, well, there.
And clearly documented, too, which is a big plus.
It signals a more, open approach compared to the often more closed ecosystems you see sometimes, right? Especially in Japan.
Definitely. And it wasn't just a one-off data dump either. They highlighted how frequently these resources get updated, like every few months.
Which is pretty active.
But the real game changer for them seemed to be the help documentation for PLC Next, specifically that it's HTML-based.
Ah, yes. This was a major point. They were almost campaigning for the whole industry to switch to HTML manuals instead of PDFs.
And the reason?
Accessibility, mainly. They loved how easily Google Chrome could translate the Japanese version on the fly. It just made the information so much easier to get at.
It breaks down barriers, doesn't it? Especially in a global industry like FA.
Totally. It's not just convenience. It's about democratizing that technical knowledge.
And they pointed out Phoenix Contact is leading, but others are starting to follow. Slowly. Beckhoff was mentioned.
Right. Beckhoff's moving that way. And Omron, too, for some manuals, like the NX5 series.
But they really, really dislike those dedicated software viewers you sometimes need just to read a manual.
Oh, yeah. Definite frustration there. And locking error codes and parameters inside PDFs, that was another big pain point.
Because you can't easily search for them online when you're stuck, right?
Exactly. You're in the middle of troubleshooting. You just want to paste an error code into Google, and nothing. Because it's trapped in a PDF.
It's all about speed and efficiency on the factory floor, or even during design. Now, it wasn't all praise for Phoenix Contact. They did flag the website navigation as a bit challenging.
Yeah, apparently with so many products, finding what you need on their homepage can be tough.
Which led to a wider point about manufacturer websites in general being kind of unwieldy.
It's a common complaint, isn't it? They made a good comparison. Companies spend time making concise paper catalogs.
Right.
But then the websites are just endless scrolling, distracting animations.
When all you really want is to quickly find out what error code E123 actually means.
Precisely. Prioritize the essentials.
And one more point on Phoenix Contact, the part numbers. European style, all numeric.
Ah, yeah. The feedback was that these are harder to remember compared to the Japanese alphanumeric systems.
They gave examples like Panasonic's IQR, Keyence's KB8000. Those letters often give you a clue about the product type.
And Japanese catalogs often explain the numbering system, which is helpful. Apparently less common in European ones. Just a usability difference, really.
Okay, let's shift gears. WAGO came up next.
Right, WAGO. The big thing here was their recent push on community building.
Makes sense, doesn't it? Phoenix Contact is huge, especially in Germany. WAGO needs to carve out its niche.
Definitely. They need to differentiate. And the speakers acknowledged WAGO's efforts, good GitHub resources again, similar to Phoenix.
And YouTube activity, too.
Yeah, an active online presence. But the really interesting thing was this general public participation kit.
Yeah, the CC100 kit, most likely.
Probably. It's fascinating, isn't it? Marketing a controller kit to, well, almost hobbyists or non-professionals.
What'd they make of that?
The insight was that the price point, around 50,000 yen, seemed acceptable even to non-pros. It suggests maybe there's a wider market than traditionally thought.
Interesting. It also sparked a side discussion about resale value.
Oh, right. The idea that FA gear holds its value pretty well if the initial price isn't astronomical.
So WAGO's community engagement seems to be a key part of their strategy.
For sure. Then the conversation turned to the Bosch Rexroth collaboration.
The Sectoral X automation controller.
Yep. There seemed to be a bit of uncertainty about how it fits in the market, especially for Japanese customers.
Why is that?
Because it's quite bare bones, apparently. Just the OS, no integrated PLC master or application software included out of the box.
Ah, okay. So you buy the hardware, but then you still need to add quite a bit of software.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which led to this idea of, like, maybe it's an opportunity for system integrators.
To do the kidding.
Yeah.
Like bundle the hardware with the necessary software and configuration?
Potentially, yeah. But that bumped up against another issue.
Let me guess. Buying software licenses separately.
You got it. The reluctance in the Japanese market, specifically B2B, to buy software licenses after the hardware purchase.
Is it the cost?
Not necessarily the cost itself, but more the hassle, the perceived inconvenience. It's just not the established way of doing things, you know? Buying software licenses with a credit card online individually isn't typical in that B2B context.
Whereas if it was bundled up front, maybe on an online platform, it might be more accepted.
That was the thinking, yeah. Different purchasing habits.
Okay, interesting cultural nuance there. Let's talk Beckhoff.
Beckhoff. One thing they appreciated was their tools for network load testing.
Ah, useful for prof environments, right. Simulating lots of devices before you actually connect everything up.
Exactly. Good for pre-commissioning checks. They noted similar tools existed for older protocols too, like Ethernet OP.
So valuable tools, often free.
But maybe the interface wasn't always super clear. That was a minor criticism.
Okay. The bigger point seemed to be the TwinCat community in Europe.
Huge point. Apparently it's very large and active over there. Lots of user-contributed libraries, add-ons. They called them plugins.
Functionality people build and share for the TwinCat platform.
Right. And the observation was that this kind of plugin culture is much less developed in the Japanese FA market.
Any theories why?
A few ideas were floated, maybe a reluctance to share code that could be seen as proprietary know-how.
Okay, that makes sense.
Also that inconvenience of buying thing again, but for individuals wanting to buy or sell these small plugins.
And the cost barrier.
Yeah, setting up a proper development environment at home, like getting a TwinCat 3 license, isn't cheap. That could stifle individual developers.
They mentioned people used to use company licenses at home sometimes, but that's less common now.
Seems so. So, yeah, the cost of entry for individual developers might be a factor holding back that ecosystem in Japan.
Beckhoff is also apparently moving more towards online sales, shifting away from relying solely on distributors.
That seems to be a trend.
And briefly, on subscription models for dev tools.
Yeah, they touched on that. Acknowledged that things like maintenance fees for big CAD software are normal.
But widespread subscriptions for FA tools, especially for individuals, maybe the industry isn't quite ready.
Partly the individual purchasing power issue again, the B2B credit card thing.
And maybe connectivity. Needing constant internet for a subscription could be an issue in some factory settings.
Potentially, yeah. A few hurdles there.
This whole discussion kind of led into some broader reflections on the industry itself, didn't it?
It did, like the classic criticism. PLC technology is stuck in the 80s.
Ah, yes, the ladder logic debate.
Exactly. They acknowledged, look, yeah, the core language ladder logic hasn't fundamentally changed that much for decades.
Okay.
But the underlying systems, the capabilities, the hardware, the networking, the integration, that stuff has evolved immensely.
So it's a bit unfair to just point at ladder logic and say nothing's changed in manufacturing control.
That was the feeling. It ignores all the progress elsewhere in the control system.
They even threw down a bit of a challenge, didn't they? Like, if you think C or Python is so much better.
Yeah, basically. Go prove it in a real manufacturing setting. If it works better, you'll reap the rewards.
Which highlights the inherent conservatism in FA.
Absolutely. And for good reason, right? Production systems are critical. Downtime is potentially disastrous.
So you stick with what's stable, what's proven, even if it feels a bit dated sometimes.
They compared it to IT infrastructure. SQL is still dominant after all these years. It works. It's reliable.
So the industry does evolve, but cautiously. It adopts newer tech, but usually once it's pretty well established, not bleeding edge.
Right. Radical, untested stuff faces an uphill battle.
But the landscape is changing. They mentioned simpler platforms like Arduino, Raspberry Pi, Python.
Yeah, becoming really relevant in education, maybe starting to creep into simpler industrial tasks too.
Does that pose a threat to traditional PLCs? Could they lose out if they don't adapt?
It's a valid question. That perception of ladder logic as a legacy language is definitely strong in some circles.
Okay, so after the broader industry thoughts, they got into some specific manufacturer preferences. The guest speaker, representing Optex FA.
Right. They really appreciated Optex FA's approach. High degree of in-house development and manufacturing.
Which they contrasted with a trend of some Japanese companies outsourcing development, sometimes to Germany.
Yeah, the guest liked being able to have deep technical chats directly with the engineers who design the stuff.
And Optex FA apparently lends out equipment directly sometimes. Unusual for Japan, right? Usually goes through distributors.
Very unusual. They also mentioned a connection to a manga, manufacturing Ryu, and described Optex FA as having an approachable Kansai-style vibe. Osaka-based, right?
Yeah, Osaka. More direct, maybe.
Seems that way. The guest also gave a shout-out to IDEC, another Osaka company.
What about IDC?
Liked their diversification safety products, getting into robotics, even distributing robot software.
And also interested in a smaller Osaka company, Muscle Corporation.
They make driver-integrated motors, stepper, and servo. Fits with a preference for compact, integrated hardware.
One more interesting startup mentioned, Aetherlink.
Oh, yeah, the wireless power one, 2019 startup.
That's right. Technology for wireless power up to 20 meters, low power, specifically developing it for FA sensors.
Cool application. And they're presenting soon.
Yeah, at a factory automation exhibition in November. One to watch, maybe.
Definitely.
Then the host speaker in the original podcast chimed in with a few mentions. Hokyu Electric for safety controllers.
Okay.
Keyence, known for their safety scanners, among many other things.
Right, Keyence is everywhere.
Yokogawa Electric got a mention too. Praised for being early with Linux-based controllers.
How interesting.
And the ability to run real-time controllers and an API access point in the same rack. Plus, transparency from their Indian GitHub presence.
Good to hear about transparency. Any others?
Briefly, Hitachi using codices for their PLC platform now, apparently, and Toshiba with a cloud PLC concept.
Cloud PLC. That's definitely looking forward.
And finally, some quick thoughts from the host on experiences with Italian manufacturers like Exor.
What was the take there?
Strong personalities, maybe sometimes a bit lacking in follow-through, just an observation.
Okay.
Also noted, European vendors tend to stick more strictly to business hours for support compared to maybe more flexibility from Japanese support centers.
The 9 to 5 versus maybe longer hours culture difference.
But on the flip side, European companies, especially smaller or newer ones, can be really quick with initial responses and getting samples out.
Right, pros and cons, swings and roundabouts.
So if we try to wrap this up, what are the main threads we pulled from this deep dive?
Well, definitely the push for better, more accessible documentation. That HTML manual point was huge. Easy translation is key.
Yeah, and seeing how different manufacturers are trying different things, community building like WAGO.
Trying to reach new markets, maybe even non-professionals.
While facing challenges, like getting the Japanese market comfortable with different software purchasing models.
And that whole debate around PLC technology, is it stuck or has it actually evolved significantly behind the scenes?
Plus, we got some candid insights into specific companies, their strengths, weaknesses, even their business style, straight from people using the gear.
Which leads us to that final thought, maybe for you listening. Given how fast general computing moves and how, well, careful the FA industry has to be, what's really going to drive the adoption of genuinely new automation tech in the future?
Yeah, what factors will be critical? How do you balance that need for rock-solid reliability with the potential benefits of jumping to newer, maybe less proven ways of doing things?
It's that constant tension, isn't it? Proven versus potential.
Definitely something to think about. Hopefully this gave you a good condensed look at some of these conversations happening in the FA world over in Japan. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.